Hello, my name is Natalie Oler, and this is my video reflection over my virtual field experience. So this is just an overview of what I'll be discussing today. So first I'll talk about my Zoom experience and what it was like teaching over Zoom. Then I'll talk about the technology that I used for my lesson, and then I'll just reflect my feelings in discussing the struggles and the successes and also what could be improved for next time. And then last, I will talk about takeaways, which are things that I will take away to use in my future as an educator. So here I am just going to discuss my Zoom experience. So first off, I'd like to say that it was a very good experience. I'm glad I got the opportunity to do this, but along with that, it was challenging just because I've never taught over Zoom before and it's really hard without that face-to-face connection. The technology did work though, but I was definitely nervous when I was starting out because I had never done it before, and it was hard to build that relationship over Zoom in such a short amount of time. Also, it was difficult because there were other kids in the room during our session, so it was hard for my student to keep his focus. But other than that, I would say it was a pretty good experience. So here are the technology tools I used. I obviously had to use Zoom because it was online, but I also used Epic, which is a reading platform for grades K through 6, I'm pretty sure. And it has a lot of varieties of books to choose from, so it was a really good resource, especially since we were working on reading during this session. I also used my notes app just to keep my lesson plan organized and to write down my students' responses and important information. That way I had something to reference during the lesson. And then we also needed to use our headphones because it was noisy in the room and we needed to hear one another, and so we needed those headphones in just to make sure that we were on track and listening to one another. So for my feelings over the Zoom call, starting off, I would say that I felt it was a well-facilitated conversation. Just structure-wise, we asked some pre-questions and then we got into the nitty-gritty and read the story, and I asked him a couple questions throughout, and then we asked some questions at the end, which I'll get into later, but I just felt like the layout was really good and it was just a good back and forth between me and the student. It wasn't one-sided. Another pro is that we also made personal connections. So before we started, I just wanted to make sure I had a foundation with the student of knowledge both on him and me, so that way he felt more comfortable with me. And we had a few things in common, and he was very interested in learning about what I did here at college, and he had fun answering the questions that I asked him, so that was really good. And I felt that the student also did good when I asked him some synthesis questions to check for understanding. He answered the majority of my questions accurately, which I was proud of because it was a little bit of a difficult book because he chose nonfiction, but he really wanted to read it, and he did a pretty good job with it, so that was very good. But also, it was challenging, like I said previously, to keep the student engaged just because there were a lot of distractions in the room. There were students reading all at once, and so he would turn and talk to his neighbor sometimes, which is difficult because over the screen I don't really have that much control over the situation. But I would just tell him to focus his attention back up front, and then he would, so that was really good. He was very well behaved, and I enjoyed my time with him. So some of my key takeaways, how I will improve for next time is I'll let the student pick a book. I picked out a couple books from a couple different genres, and the student did seem interested, but not as engaged as if it would have been a book that the student may have been more interested in. So if I had to change something, I would definitely let the student pick a book, and I would find a book from every genre because I only picked fiction and nonfiction, but I think it would be cool if I tried to branch out a little bit more in genres, again, trying to find something that the student might find more interesting. I would also try to find ways to make the reading more engaging, to try to just keep the students' attention, even though it was a very chaotic environment. I could see if I could make some more interactive elements just because it is difficult to keep the students' attention when there's so much going on around them. So if I could find different ways or activities to try and keep the students' attention, that would definitely help. And I also would try to find ways to make the environment less distracting. Again, it's kind of difficult when it's other students reading all at once, but I could possibly brainstorm some ideas or talk to some of my fellow teachers and see how to manage that environment better. What I learned and how will this contribute to my professional identity as a teacher, I learned how to facilitate a Zoom class, which is very important, especially in today's world. There are a lot of things that'll be over Zoom in education. I learned how to handle e learning or unplanned online classes. Like I said, there's always things that happen where you need that online lesson, so I came up with a mini little lesson plan, and so that would definitely help me to use that in the future and know how to work on the fly. It helped me to figure out what kids find engaging and how to engage them more just in general to make the lesson more interesting to them and their interests. I can definitely take away some ideas from this experience, and I also use strategies for teaching online. Just because I have never had the opportunity to teach online, I learned how to facilitate those conversations and lessons and interactions with students over Zoom through this virtual field experience that I would not have gotten the opportunity to do otherwise.